I think it shifted from, and this is maybe not even in the last year, but before, from a kind of, I wouldn't say like advisory kind of watch, and it's definitely moved more to enforcement, like you said, as opposed to like, what's the right term, like oversight. It felt like regulation very much used to be checkbox and oversight. Now it's much more like enforcement based. That's definitely like the feeling we're getting globally. I mean, obviously, like you said, the nuances, like in the US versus the rest of the world, maybe. But yeah.
The US versus everyone else.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, I think because of that, because there is a lot more enforcement, and that is international bodies having a lot more teeth, that is local bodies having a lot more teeth. That has also there's been pushback by industry to make sure that these rules are sensible, that they actually do matter, that you aren't doing things that are very pointless and expensive exercises, especially if you're going to be at risk. So we've also seen, and I mean, this was adopted a few years ago, but really is starting to mature now, the importance of risk-based approaches, the importance of really understanding your risk from a fraud and AML perspective, and a much more robust engagement from the regulators about what that actually means for you. But that has also meant that you've got to be a lot more dynamic in your processes, and there's a lot more expectation that your processes are dynamic.
Yeah, and a lot more scrutiny on companies. I think if we come back down to the question of like, what does it actually mean for companies at the end of it is, I mean, like in South Africa now, the FIC and PAA have to, like, after grey listing they have to meet quarterly, as an example. So you're going from this kind of like annual audit to almost quarterly audits, which are quite intensive on a business. And then, yeah, I mean, of course, the usual systems or technology, people, processes, there's a lot of investment that's needing to happen there. And what is the narrative we're hearing globally as RelyComply is the cost of compliance, and how do they manage the cost? Because ultimately, that cost has to go somewhere, and it's either going to eat into margins, but most of the time, if we're honest, it's going to probably get passed on to the consumer, right?
It's only investors or consumers that ever pay for something.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, had a very good point. Yeah, the other big shift that we're seeing continuing is how many more parties are coming under regulatory purview, where it was really just core financial institutions, really banks. Now, pretty much everyone that touches money in some way has regulatory obligations. This makes complete sense. There's no point in super armoring just a few doors and then leaving the fence dilapidated. But this is difficult for a lot of companies, especially as we get more interesting, more diversified financial services providers. The cost of compliance is real and difficult. So,
yeah. And you've got to, I mean, like, this is probably going off the script a little bit, but maybe a little bit more philosophical. Once again, it's like, do they really want to stop this? We've got a super interesting story from the weekend where, like, someone I met was like, you know, they know someone who was like, had commercial property, and basically a politically exposed person bought a commercial property from them, but wanted to pay in cash. And they were like, well, if the conveyancers cleared them, then this is the conveyancer's problem. I'll take the cash, because the conveyancer is actually the one who's, you know, who's legally dealing with this from a anti-money laundering perspective. So although there's all these additional costs and checks, we need to start seeing, like, what is the efficacy of them down the line.